Hey guys, this is going to be a really fun video for me to make because I've been waiting to make this video for quite some time, and I've been waiting for the knife that you see right in the middle for quite some time. If you follow my channel, you know that I have a special place in my collection for Medfords. I've been collecting knives since grade school, high school, college, you name it. And, I would say probably about 4 years ago, probably a little longer than that, actually, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I got into the world of custom knives. And you kind of get into this kind of rabbit hole where you're buying knives that cost a little bit more and cost a little bit more and cost a little bit more. And for whatever reason, I just kind of hit a limit, and I hadn't bought a knife for quite some time. I'd say about 8-9 months. I'm lucky enough to have had a knife shop close by, Plaza Cutlery. Unfortunately, they are closing. But I was lucky enough to have a knife shop that when we went to South Coast Plaza, with the mall that the knife shop was located in, I would jump in. Sometimes I'd bring Russ my knife to sharpen, but we'd have a conversation with the guys, but I really hadn't bought a knife from them in a long time, just because nothing had struck me. And I do remember, like I said a couple of years back, one of the employees, for whatever reason, just doing his job, said, "Hey Aaron, I know you collect the Lamberts, I know you collect the other stuff. I just want you to do me a favor and try out one of these Medford knives." And from then it was history. I really fell in love with the Praetorian model. And as you know how I collect and how I like to collect, I really appreciate knives when they're in variations that I can get a hold of, they're available, and then they do their job and they do it well, and there's nothing in the marketplace that can match them. So from my first Praetorian tie to these three knives here, I've really, really enjoyed collecting the Medfords. And I do realize that they're very expensive pieces. One of the things that I want to do in my collection is, while I do collect knives and I polish them and I put them in a case and I just stare at them, I have the exact same knife, a version of it that I use and I beat on. And that's why I'm so excited to get this knife here. Ever since I got this knife and this knife, I just didn't have, and I realized that they were created to be used. I just didn't have the intestinal fortitude to take one out and just start beating on it. So as my kind of Medford collecting goes, I had a little bit of a lull there when some douchebag ripped me off of one of my Praetorian ties. And I gave him a refund, and after that he kind of threw it in my face and was just like, "Screw you." And unfortunately, in the world, there are so many stories I hear, and that's one thing that I think is really, really bad about this hobby. For whatever reason, I think it attracts some dirt bags. And but at the end of the day, it taught me a really good lesson, and I could have learned that lesson a lot harder. But unfortunately, if you see any of my stuff or you kind of interact with me, I'm a little bit more protective now. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing. You just kind of have to be like that. But with having him having ripped off one of my ties that Amy actually had made for me, it kind of got in the back of my mind that I didn't want this to be what I remembered my Medford collections. I was going to collect more, but my Praetorian ties, and I had so many at the time, I hadn't planned on getting any more. So I was lucky enough to just continue to talk to Amy and the guys there, and they hired a salesperson named Geoff and he had reached out to me because I had bought several knives directly from Medford, and of course I bought the bulk of them from Plaza. And he just basically said, "Hey man, I saw your video. If that knife pops up, we know it's yours, and we're looking out for you." And I said, "Hey man, I really do appreciate that. I know you're in charge of some pretty big accounts. You want to work with one order from me?" And it's not something that he normally does, but he decided, he took the time and was working with me. So if you guys want to acquire a knife like this, or you want to just talk to someone about acquiring a Medford that you have kind of a vision for. I remember talking with Greg, a year back, and Greg's got his hard, fast rules, and that's what makes him successful, and that's what makes the company successful. But sometimes it's not the most the easiest thing to deal with them, and he just goes, kind of take it or leave it. And where I'm at with knife collecting, I want what I want too. So sometimes you kind of have a little bit of friction there, and it's always nice to have a sales guy kind of bridge that gap. So you can email Geoff. He is at sales@medfordknife.com. If you want to give him a call, it's 623-249-4506. And he's really gone above and beyond. I can only imagine the poor dude's job working with Greg sometimes. Not, I don't want to say that negatively. Greg has always been very, very polite and kind to me, but I could only imagine, when kind of the guff I gave Geoff and what Greg probably said to him when he came back and asked for a color change or whatnot. So he did a great job. If you guys have any inkling about acquiring a knife like this, I would give him a call. What's he going to say? No, he can't do it. So anyway, so after, that unpleasant incident with the douchebag, he reached out to me and he said, hey, I'm going to keep an eye out for the knife. And I said, well, since I have you on the phone, what I'm looking for is a knife that I could use, carry around, and beat on, more so than all the other. I have a ton of Medfords that I beat on, but I wanted something kind of like the Mokuti version here that I had acquired. But look at this thing. I mean, I really should beat on this thing, but I mean, my God, it's just beautiful. This is the Sanmai exactly how I like it. And I've never seen a Mokuti polish job quite like this, with the light blue, the dark blue. I mean, it's got all the color patterns in there. I didn't like that he didn't do the Mokuti lock side, and I'll get into that. But everything else on this knife was amazing. So before Geoff, I had actually called up Greg, and I said, hey, you guys made this knife. I bought it. I really love it, and I want you guys to make me a knife with a Mokuti lock side. And Greg's response was, well, thanks for calling. No. And that was kind of the end of that conversation. I lie. He explained that he didn't feel comfortable with the mechanics and yada, yada, yada. Whatever he said, the answer was basically no. So when Geoff called me and reached out, I said, hey, Geoff, you want to do me a favor? I'm looking for a Praetorian tie that's all Mokuti. And I can only imagine what Greg said to him, like, dude, Geoff, I already told this knucklehead no. As you can see here, this is not a Mokuti back, so the story does not end perfectly well. But Geoff had come back to me and said, yeah, Greg's not going to do that. But he will make you a Mokuti knife of your choosing if you'd like. And they knew I was kind of looking for a user because I explained that to Greg. So while I like all the Damasteel and all that cool stuff, yeah, I just, my vision was just a Mokuti handle and just a plain blade. And so they come back and said, hey, we can make something like that for you. In fact, they were going to the Plaza show in October. In October, I think it was. And they were making some for the Plaza show. So I said, perfect. Throw it on the barbecue. Let's get one cooked up, and I'll take that sucker. So fast forward, I don't know, to November, they actually shipped me this knife, and this is kind of where the story gets good or bad, however you want to interpret it. And I'm very thankful to have Geoff at the factory there, because I don't know how this would have turned out otherwise. They explained to me that the knife was made up of, because it came quickly, kind of pieces. It wasn't designed all at once. So I was going to get a Mokuti scale. The backside was going to be just titanium. I did request the Medford shield, which they don't make anymore. So they found this one for me, but the backside was not. And then I requested it to be friends and family because I was going to carry it. So I wanted a thinner blade because I wanted to put this in my pocket and run around the city with it. And so they called me back and said, yeah, we got all the pieces. We'll throw them together for you. And it'll probably only be, I think it was a few weeks after the the Plaza show, and they shipped me the knife. So I get the knife, and I'm playing with it, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is really awesome. And I notice a few things. Actually, I'm going to back up the story a little bit. I'm going to back up the story because when they originally offered it to me, they showed me some pictures, and I remember saying, yeah, it was more bronze. It was even bronzer than my first one, and I'm not a big fan of bronze in large quantities, because if you use it, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I have some bronze users. For whatever reason, when it's darker, for one, I think it just looks better, and for two, when you put fingerprints on it, the bronze really fades out. Like if you put fingerprints all over the bronze, if you're eating oily food and you put prints on the bronze, I mean, you won't see the pattern at all. So I think when they flame this thing a little darker, the pattern is just a little bit more, it's prone to stand up to oil a little bit better and be visible with oil, which is, again, why I like this knife. So I asked for it to be reflamed. I was told no, so I said either reflame it or I won't buy it. Again, I can only imagine the conversation that Greg had with Geoff when Geoff came back and said, hey, we got to reflame this thing, because that's what sales guys do. And Greg did this all himself, so he actually flamed this. I couldn't be happier. It really came out well. It's a nice matte finish, so that's perfect. It's not going to pick up fingerprints. It's the exact color profile I want. And then for whatever reason, I asked for the backside to be anodized in blue, which I was told no, which is fine. Look, I never, ever, ever, I've had so many custom knives done. I actually respect knife makers and artists for sticking to their knife making and art. Whatever that is, whatever reason they have for that, I think that's what makes them great. So don't take this as a complaint. This is just the process, and I'm just kind of explaining for entertainment purposes how I came about getting this knife. So I knew exactly what I was getting. So fast forward to when I pop open the box, I go, here it is. I got the gold back. I got this clip here. I got this color, and everything was great. And I slipped this thing in my pocket, and it cuts a gigantic hole in my pants when I pull it out, because this tip on the old knife was about, I measured it, probably, it was not much, but it kind of came up to there. So it was about 1 millimeter shorter, and my pants were kind of getting in there. And it's a big gap anyway, so things are going to get in there. So I don't necessarily think that's a defect on the knife. But what I had told Greg was, I said, look, this is going to be a user for me, and even if it's like 0.5 millimeter off, I'm going to sharpen the shit out of this thing over the years. So I want the blade to come, I want the knife to be a little bit longer, so when I do sharpen it over the years, it's not going to recess back and kind of get into the way of where I can cut myself again, or cut my pants. And basically Geoff handled all this for me. Greg probably was not pleased. This is probably the most expensive piece on the knife. I don't know if Greg himself even did the grind on the old one, but I can only assume it's like sending a dish back to the chef, and I'm like, at least he can't spit on my food. What's he gonna do with my knife if he gets pissed off at me? But you know what, here's the thing about knives, guys. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun. I hear people all the time, they're like, oh, I'm just going to accept that, or I don't feel comfortable asking the maker for this. Dude, Greg is Greg, and he makes great knives, and, it could be like the Soup Nazi one of these days. He might just be done with me and say, HK Winger, no more knives for you, and send me on my way. But until then, I'm going to ask for what I want, right? And as I get into my collecting and a little bit more in depth, I get pickier and pickier. So I knew exactly what I wanted. Anyway, so I sent it back, and poor Geoff had to, I think I'm not, if I'm assuming this story correctly, I think he might have just taken it back because of me, and I had a relationship with him, and I don't even think at any point did Greg say, yeah, man, we'll take care of him. I think Geoff just kind of went above and beyond and took the knife back. And now it's recently they're getting ready for SHOT Show, and if you have ever called Greg while he's anywhere near SHOT Show, it's always like a monkey with his head cut off, right? Or a chicken with his head cut off. We're so busy, so the last thing he wants me to do is tell him, that I want more flaming on the clip, which I did ask for. And so Geoff handled it all. We went back to Greg. Greg is the only one that can touch these knives, and he's working on the signature series and all that stuff. So he basically, you have to kind of wait till Greg gets time to do it. And apparently he did it. I kind of sent Geoff a handful of emails. He was updating me the whole time, but I'm like, hey, where's my knife? I want to use my knife. And finally, I'm learning how to thumb flick this, guys. So if it looks weird, it's just because I'm just learning how to do it. Not learning, but I'm practicing, because this is going to be a user, and I'd love to. Can you imagine busting this out and going boom? Anyway, so he finally emails me back and says, dude, it's right before SHOT Show. We're crazy around here. So I'm going to do my best and get you that knife back before SHOT Show, because we're going to be gone for a week. So I said, come on, man, get my knife back to me. And he gets it. They ship it back to me. That was very nice. And I got it. And when I got it, everything was perfect. The blade is long enough. It was going to my pants, and everything's great. Except for it didn't have an edge on it. Can you believe that? That's okay. I think Geoff might have pulled it off the assembly line and sent it to me. If I was a more patient person, I would have cared. But I thought to myself, you know what? What a one-of-one collector's item. We got a Mokuti Praetorian. Friends and family, by the way, is how I ordered it. They only did that for me, because I kind of hounded them to do it. The original one was a full size. But basically, it didn't have an edge on it, so I'm like, I wonder if I should send it back. Probably not. If I'm not soup Nazi'd out, I'll be soup Nazi'd by the end of this process. So I'm just gonna see. I'm gonna see if I can sharpen it myself. I have a wicked edge, and I'm pretty good at sharpening things. And I never cut things on camera, but oh my god, I'm gonna try this. Try not to cut my damn hand off here, but holy crap, right? I've never had a knife come out so sharp. So I don't know if Greg did the hollow grind himself, but holy crap, was it a nice hollow grind. And when I put that thing on the wicked edge, this is probably the sharpest knife I own. And it's friggin' huge, and it's friggin' awesome. So I've been carrying this guy pretty much nonstop. It's been to the beach with me. If this knife ever comes for sale, which it will never, because I'm going to keep this, for full disclosure, I pulled the pocket clip off and I flamed it a little bit more. So, Greg is probably like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? But it actually matched the gold, and I thought I wanted it to offset a little bit. So, the gold's growing on me. I don't hate it, but I didn't want the pocket clip and the whole thing to be a big old hunk of gold. So I took a cigar flamer to this thing. So I'm surprised it got hot enough, but it turned out fantastic. I would say right now, this is one of my favorite knives. So I have a lot of knives, I have a lot of flippers, and I've been flipping a Stan Wilson non-flipper flipper, and it's been destroying my finger. So I've been alternating back and forth, right? So I'll carry the non-flipper flipper, flip the crap out of it, and when my finger just calls for mercy and you can't flip it anymore, I'll pull this thing out and I'll carry this thing. But I'm not going to lie to you guys. The non-flipper flipper's cool, but if I were to get into a knife fight and I only got to pick one of my knives, this is the knife. Of course, I'd get a machete or something, but if it can only be this long or whatever. Not that I would ever want to get in a knife fight. I'm really going off on a tangent here. But this knife is freaking badass. And just everything about this knife, it's very comfortable to carry. One of the negative things I had on my Praetorian Tide that I still do carry was these were a little bit sharp, but for whatever reason, this particular knife is not sharp here. So this thing's a pleasure to carry. Very smooth. In fact, I'm getting it down. I'm going to be able to thumb flick it, and once I get it to 100% thumb flick, I'll be happy. But I can always thumb flick it this way, but anyway, I'm working on that. But once again, Geoff, I'm sure you're going to watch this video. Sorry, had to call you guys out on the no edge there, but it turned out better for me because this is ridiculously sharp. And I want to personally thank you for all your hard work. Again, I think dealing with Greg can sometimes be a challenge in itself. And I encourage anyone who wants a knife like this or has any questions, get a hold of Geoff down at Medford and see what he can cook up for you. And not only that, I thought this was a pretty good deal. I mean, as far as knives out there and kind of knives in my collection, the utility, the sharpness, and then the Mokuti on this, it's actually not a bad deal. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you see someone out there rocking a friends and family Mokuti Praetorian tie and you see this clip in your pocket, go ahead and say hi. It's probably me. Until then, I hope you guys score a lot of cool knives. And once again, Geoff, thank you for all your work. Thanks. Bye.